The Green for Growth Fund was established in 2009 and was initiated by the European Investment Bank and KfW. And it counts among its shareholders many of the international financial institutions and private investors. The fund was established to promote renewable energy and energy efficiency in its core region, which started in the Balkans and then expanded later into the Caucasus, Ukraine, and Moldova, and just last year expanded further into the Middle East and North Africa, totaling 19 countries in total. The fund has a great track record. It's actually lent more than 450 million euros to date. And the carbon savings emissions that it's counted are over 400,000 per annum. The fund operates in two ways. So first, by providing financing to financial institutions for on-lending for renewable energy and energy efficiency purposes. And second, we also directly finance projects, renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. I have personally been active with the fund for the last 4 years and working in the Western Balkan region and for renewable energy. I'll focus on that today as head of project finance for the fund in this purpose, but that's not to ignore the other achievements and other important activities of the fund also in the energy efficiency field. GGF is generally targeting small and medium-sized renewable energy projects, but can also support larger projects. We can act as a sole lender for projects or in a consortium of lenders. And in general, we're looking for ticket sizes of between €5 and 20 million for one project. The projects that we support are most renewable energy technologies. So we're looking for run-of-the-river hydropower, wind power, PV, geothermal, biomass, and biogas. But one important matter is that GGF has very strict environmental and social criteria. So for our projects, it's very important that sponsors also care about those matters, that they've bought into them, that they're working on these matters. And especially that includes strong upfront studies, so environmental and social impact analyses. But for technologies, for certain technologies, there are other types of studies that should be done. So for hydropower, for example, we should expect, strong aquatics analyses, biodiversity studies, and these things that lead to our analyses and assessment of ecological flow, of the need for fish passes and other types of environmental design matters in the project. And for wind, for example, you would need proper bird and bat analyses, and a very important matter in all renewable energy projects is the community and social aspects of the projects, and that's something that we'll also look very carefully at in our assessments. In general, I think that renewable energy project finance has been slower in its development in the region than we originally anticipated, at least when I started working on the portfolio about 4 years ago. And I think that this is mainly due to the slow development of proper regulatory frameworks for this purpose. But there are exceptions. Croatia, for example, has put together a very good framework that's been very successful in many different technologies. And what you see also in Croatia is a very strong local banking market, which is able to support the projects that are going forward. And Serbia also is now moving ahead with its renewable energy framework, also with the support of IFC and EBRD and other international financial institutions. And here also the sector benefits from a strong banking market. Other countries are also making steps ahead in this way. So there remain certain obstacles in the region for renewable energy project financing in general. These include, for example, the regulatory frameworks in certain countries, as I mentioned, but also environmental and social matters can sometimes be an obstacle for projects moving ahead. And even the experience of the different parties with project finance. However, GGF, through its technical assistance facility, can assist with some of these matters. For example, we've developed what we call pre-bankability technical assistance, where we can actually help support advisors for sponsors, for example, or for certain matters related to project finance. Or, for example, we might be able to help support the environmental and social studies that are needed for a project or certain other matters that would be helpful to making a project move ahead. First and foremost, most governments need to decide what they'd like to do for renewable energy program, what is required by the Energy Community Secretariat, what's affordable for them, and how it would be paid for. Second, governments need to integrate the proper fundamentals of project finance into the regulatory framework and into the bylaws that would implement this framework. The basis for project finance is that risk is allocated to the party who best bears that risk. For example, if we take a power purchase agreement and a government has set up a company to actually purchase the power from renewable energy companies, it's very important that that company is financially strong, and that's one particular point that governments can control and determine how they should make these arrangements. The second example I can give is, for example, when a plant comes for commissioning and it needs to be tested by the transmission company, that there are clear procedures for testing and clear timelines. So, for example, if this isn't carried out on time or within these procedures, that maybe even certain penalties would be due from the transmission company. Second, governments need to establish the proper fundamentals in the legislative framework for project finance and for large-scale renewable energy projects by establishing the legislation and bylaws needed to make this happen. Finally, we highly recommend that governments work with the international financial institutions who offer advisory services to put into place the proper framework from the beginning for a project. And this is, for example, what the Serbian government did with IFC and EBRD. This may be costly in the beginning, but in the long run, I think it saves costs for all parties and ensures the smooth implementation of a renewable energy framework. Finally, governments need to remember that in this initial period, there are a lot of risks for all parties, including the government, including the developers, including lenders to the project, and nobody really knows how projects will go forward from a construction perspective in the operating period. And incentives that are created for this initial period need to keep this type of risk in mind. Our website, www.ggf.lu, provides all of the information you need about the fund to get started. We would recommend that companies send us a teaser of their project that we can consider for the financing. And we recommend that companies take careful consideration of especially environmental and social criteria, which are outlined on the website. GGF is here to support renewable energy and energy efficiency projects and investments in the Western Balkans. And we see great potential for new investments in now and in the future. And we highly encourage you to come and talk to us about your investments, and we look forward to working with companies and institutions in the region going forward.